And we are back with another episode on the Unfiltered Journey podcast. I am your host, Will. Hey, man, it's been 2 weeks since I last spoke to you guys. I hope all is well. I know we just had a snowstorm. Most of the country had been affected by the snowstorm, mostly us in this northeast. We had well over a foot and some change, and I hope everybody stayed safe out there. I know that the weather kind of broke, and we have another snowstorm coming. Nothing too drastic as the one that we just had. I am aware that we did lose some lives in the snowstorm, so pray for those families. And in the midst of praying for those families, make sure that we say a prayer or some well wishes to the people and the families that are suffering through these tragic moments in time in Minneapolis. There's a lot going on in this world, and the only thing I can say to each and every one of you is that we have to band together. You know, nothing separates us. We are one, no matter how we look or where we come from. We are one. So let's band together. Let's stay together. Let's comfort each other. Let's be there for one another. Say your prayers for the people that have been affected and that lost lives in all of these tragedies that's going on in Minneapolis and around the world. Um, so, but today's episode, we're talking about toxic relationships and letting go. And we're going to talk about, platonic relationships, friendships, and romantic relationships. This is all a part of that episode and when to let go. I can tell you as a person who is who tries to be very transparent, I can become toxic. And part of that is because I don't know when to let go, right? And it's funny because then you'll say, well, why are we having this episode? Because I had to learn a lot throughout that, and I'm still learning as I go through this space of life. And I can never be the one to sit there and act as if I have everything down pat. And that was kind of the reason why I started this podcast, because again, it's supposed to be my own digital memoir and the things that I'm learning and relearning and going through and helping someone out there that may feel stuck, how to identify, um, you know, a toxic relationship or when to let go. And so that's something that we have to understand. But I had to also know, like, people have to understand that there are some people who lift you up and some people weigh you down without even realizing it. And it's like, how do you know the difference, right? Um, like I've been in situations where I felt it was impossible for me to walk away, but it ended up saving me. What truly makes a toxic relationship, and what should we be looking out for? And again, these toxic relationships span across everything, and it can't just, be the romantic part. Your friendships can be toxic too. Your platonic situations can be toxic. Your coworkers, they can be toxic. But what is it that we have to identify to help us see that these relationships are toxic? I think one of the first things you have to look at is the constant criticism or belittling, right? I had a situation where, because my life is a little bit different than somebody else's, and I have the capabilities to um, afford the lane for me to grow, somebody took that as a way to jab at me. That's belittling the fact that I'm looking for avenues for me to continuously grow, right? So when you look at situations and you're looking at your relationships, is there constant criticism? There is a difference between constructive criticism and the constant criticism where it leads to you feeling lesser about yourself. And that's one bullet point that you can think of when you're identifying if this is a toxic relationship or not. Another one is where you have manipulation and control. A person who can sit there and twist and turn words or tell you how to be in certain in behaviors to control how you are, that can lead to a very toxic relationship. Now, there are many forms of manipulation, there's many forms of controlling behavior that you will have to look at, because if you can't be your authentic self, then that relationship is not for you. If the conversation that we're having and the story gets told only one specific way, that is manipulation. That in the terms, it only allows that person, whoever is telling the story, to look a specific way. That is manipulating people in order to have other people look at the opposing person in a manner. And it happens a lot, whether we like to know it or not. That goes with gossiping. Gossiping is a form of manipulation, because in gossiping, you don't get all the information, right? The people that are around them don't give them all the information. So you might want to take a look at that manipulation and controlling behavior. Another point that you want to look at for toxic relationships is lack of support or empathy. And when we're talking about empathy, we're talking about somebody having the capacity to feel something for you when you're going through something and not making it about them, right? The friend, the romantic partner, whoever it is that you are in any of these relationships with, they have to be able to have the capacity to hear what you have to say, and therefore give you possible constructive criticism or advice, but also be the ear to just hear you. Sometimes we just need somebody to hear us out and not make it about them. So if I have a problem and there's something that's happening and then you make it about you, that's not empathy, right? That person is not showing you empathy. If you're going to do something like start a podcast, or you want to start a business, and the person that you're telling this idea to is negative about it, they're not giving you support. Now understand that each and every one of these things that we're talking about comes under certain conditions and certain times, and we all have our own way to say that's the line of where I'm identifying this as no support, as it's being controlling behavior, or if it's criticism, right? My line is different from your line, but the principles are still the same. When we look at our relationships, what are we getting from them, right? Are we feeling drained? Are we anxious? Do we feel like we're walking on eggshells? I can tell you that for me, when it gets to a certain situation and I feel like you're not listening to me or you're not trying to hear me, I will shut down on you. And I had to understand that there's two types of silent treatment. One is more in a defensive mechanism, and one is in a manipulating way, right? And a lot of times people just think that silent treatment is just manipulation. It's not. It depends on your situation. If you felt like you've been talking to somebody and they don't want to hear you out, or they don't have the capacity to hear you out, then that's kind of like you just defending yourself in a situation where they just don't have the capacity to hear you. And it's not manipulation, because you're not trying to force them to talk to you. You just realize that they don't want to listen, they don't want to hear you out, they don't want to talk. And it's okay. Not everybody has to have that for you. But what I will say is that there are different forms, right? And there are times where I wanted to talk about certain topics and situations in some of my relationships where I felt like it was going to fall on deaf ears. Either it was going to fall on deaf ears, or they would make it about them. They would talk about something that happened to them, so it would dismiss what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and things of that nature. So when we talk about what are we getting from these relationships, we're saying, do we feel drained? Are we anxious? Are we walking on eggshells? So when we look at what is making toxic relationships, let's just be mindful of all these little characteristics that come within it. Um, like it's bad when you leave a conversation and you feel like you ran a mental marathon without even leaving your couch. And that's what we need to identify as toxic relationships. For me, in a toxic situation, again, I hold myself strongly accountable for any interaction that I've ever had in any relationship, because I need to see where I can become better. But I had to understand that I let a lot of things go for the sake of avoiding confrontation. Certain behaviors that people exhibited, and I kind of pushed it off to the side, saying, well, that's kind of part of who they are. But in the end, I was internalizing that behavior, and I had to understand that it was affecting me in the long run. And this is why, at some point in nature, I become toxic, because now, at the end, I'm not the person that I truly am. I'm not my authentic self. And it's not to put me down or let the other people escape any sense of accountability for what they had a part of that situation and where it went to. It's just saying that we have to recognize when and how we're being affected and what accountability we hold in those situations that makes those friendships or romantic relationships turn the way that they do. And when we allow those small behaviors to pile up and we're not having the proper conversations, the hard conversations, we have to understand that that will put us in a position to actually become the one that is toxic. And I'm a prime example of that. I allowed a situation to go on for too long, even though I know that I tried to have a conversation. But even in therapy and life coaching, as I spoke outwardly about it, I never spoke outwardly about it in my relationships. And then eventually that top blew off and I became the toxic one. And my behavior in that relationship, when I look at it, I'm ashamed of who I became. So we have to be mindful, and when we identify these traits of what makes a toxic relationship, and address them in the appropriate manner, or just separate ourselves from it. I get stressed out when I feel like I'm explaining myself to people and they don't have any regards to what I'm talking about, but want me to be hand in hand for them. Where it becomes a bit tiring is that I'm the constant relief for them, but I have no relief for myself. When that is happening, you have to look at that situation and realize that there is a lack of empathy coming from one side. The feeling of being drained, the feeling of walking on eggshells because I cannot communicate with you how you're making me feel without you making it feel as if it's a personal attack. And I know that we all go through situations like that. And that's why we end up walking on eggshells or just avoiding the conversation in general. And we all say something along the lines of a cliche line of, well, that's just them and they'll get over it. And but what about us? Right? What about us that actually makes that relationship safe to be in? We have to be voiceful for ourselves because nobody else will actually be voiceful, right? It's easy to ignore red flags, especially if you care for someone, but that shouldn't cost you your peace of mind, right? You have to understand that at the end of the day, the one that actually is the most important is you. Yes, you can love somebody, you can care for somebody deeply, but your peace of mind is really what we have to think about. And that's something that those toxic relationships can kind of really cost you is your peace of mind. Um, think about how it made you feel physically and mentally. Like, did you feel tension? Did you get knots in your stomach? Like the worry emotion? Like, how was all of that, right? Um, but those are things that we have to look at when we're talking about toxic relationships and assess them. And then we have to go to the next part, which is letting go. Letting go is very difficult, especially for me. I am a person that I tend to see potential in people, um, and I try to do my best by them. I am not no angel. I will never sit here and pretend to be an angel. I will never sit here and pretend that I have it all correct because I don't. But what I will say is I learned a lot from my marriage. I was married to a woman who I was with for like 15 years. And because I didn't have the proper outlets and I did things in a toxic manner that once I finally learned that therapy was there for me to find healthier ways to deal with things, it allowed me to learn that over time, and I've been divorced since um, 21, I think it was, separated 2017, finally divorced in 21 year. And since then, having dealing with therapy, it allowed me to understand like a lot of different healthy um, characteristics, and I built those things into my life. But I will say to people out there is that doesn't necessarily make it complete because you have to constantly put the work in order to do that. So knowing that I'm very intentional, especially going into relationships, I am being very intentional. I tend to look at things with more grace than I used to, which is a problem. This is why I end up being the toxic one at the end. There's a great balance in that, and learning when to let go is very necessary. Um, I know that we go through attachments, right? And we have guilt, we have hope, we have nostalgia, we have fear of confrontation. And although that we may go through those things, it's necessary that we figure out a way or when to let go. You know, we often stay because we think people will change, or because ending it feels like it's failure. And for me, I can tell you that's so true because as my last relationship ended, and I I honestly was heartbroken about it. I still am heartbroken about it. I called my sister because I firmly believe that where I was going with this relationship, because of how intentional I was moving and how everything was going, and yeah, I was willing to ride the waves, but at the end of that relationship and the person that I became at the end of that relationship, I felt ashamed and I felt like a failure. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a failure. It just means that that relationship probably didn't work for the better. And there's many reasons as a lot of our relationships don't work. Um, but you're not a failure, right? You're not a failure in your friendships. You're not a failure in your platonic relationships. You're not a failure in your romantic relationships. It's just sometimes the dynamic doesn't work, and for whatever reason that it doesn't work, that is for you to have that discussion with, whether it's with your therapist or with a group of people who truly care for you, and you figure that out. But never look at yourself as a failure. And for a moment, I looked at myself as a failure because I thought that I was able to do something. And then like I said, I called the one person that I reached out to. I reached out to my sister and I said, I feel like I failed you. And she said, bro, you didn't fail me. Like, you went in with good intentions, just didn't work. Okay. But out of all the things that you've done in life, you really think that you failed me just because this relationship didn't work? And just something small like that made me realize, like, you're right. And even though, like I said, I still have love for that person, I still love that person, but going through that of winning, like letting go, it's hard. It really is hard. A lot of people will stick to that question and say, "Well, when does it get better?" I can't even tell you. It's the work that you put in. It's the moments that you kind of stack up for yourself in order to make it better. I'm still making it better. You know, the fun fact about letting go and ending toxic relationships is that it improves your mental health, right? It reduces your anxiety. It actually increases your emotional resistance. I can tell you that since then, my routine has picked back up. There are certain things that I'm doing, and yeah, you're gonna go through the mindset of, well, I wonder how they're doing. I wish that I did that too. I can honestly tell you that I did that during the snowstorm. Like, I know that I have a lot of information about a lot of different things, and I'm like, you know what? They may not have this, they may not have that, but I had to understand that it works both ways, right? And that's something that when we're going through our self-analyzation of the relationships, what are we really thinking about? My therapist actually taught me something today, and it went something like, I understand why, right? And whether it's a he or she. And then you fill in the blank, and then you say, I may not agree with it, but I understand it. And because I keep asking the question of, well, I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand. And we have to reprogram the way that we're thinking. But some practical tips of letting go is making sure that we set clear boundaries. Again, and the reason why I say again is because we have boundaries, but we let them go for the sake of a relationship. Whatever the relationship was, we let it go for that relationship. You have to limit contact gradually. A lot of people will tell you just cut cold turkey and whatever it is that they're saying, that sounds great. But at the end of the day, is it really logical for a lot of people? It's not. So you have to start limiting your contact. Don't go to their social media. Don't want to like go delete all of the pictures, delete the conversations. Like even if you don't want to delete it because you feel like there's hope, you know, select them all, throw them into your hidden, and just go on about your life for as long as you can. Do what you got to do, but limit contact. Like don't reach out, you know. And I'm saying this because I had to learn that myself. As a person who continuously tried to fix and repair things, I had to realize that I was constantly going to that person. And if they really valued me or wanted me to be in their life, then they would make the same effort to come back towards me too as well. But in the end, you have to limit the contact, right? Eventually, it will be no contact at all. The other thing that you can do as a practical tip for letting go is get support, healthy support, right? Healthy support, like from friends, from family, professionals. If you have to get a therapist, and I know that a lot of people say I don't have insurance, there's a lot of help out here that you can actually get to and talk about these things. I mean, even me for this point, if you just DM me or message me, yo, Will, I need to talk to you. I just need an ear. Yo, I don't charge nothing. I don't need to charge people anything that want to talk about whatever they want to talk about. I just feel like sometimes we need somebody just to talk to. But those are the things that we have to use when it's time to let go. You know, it will be hard. I can't fake it to you, but it will be hard. I can tell you, you got to take it day by day. And if it's that rough and it becomes that tough, yeah, you got to take it hour by hour, minute by minute, but know that you can do it. And it's going to hurt. It is. Don't hide away from the emotions. I will tell you that firsthand. Do not hide away from the emotions. I mean, this whole entire month, I've been to a basketball game. I did a bonsai workshop. I did a pottery class. I'm going to a museum in Harlem, out to dinner. I actually got invited to a few events next month. So it's just like a lot of things that are going to keep you busy, but you still have to do the work, right? You still have to process the emotions. You still have to look at the relationships as is. You got to take the glasses off and you got to look at them as is. But it's an amazing thing to understand that sometimes ghosting a toxic person is like putting a bad app in airplane mode. It just feels good, right? You have to have some of those feel good moments whenever they're happening. And that's something that we have to look at. But practice those things. Practice setting clear boundaries again. Practice like limiting the contact. You know, I know we wake up and we normally say good morning or whatever the case may be. I know that if it's not necessary, there's no point. Make sure that you get the support of family and friends. If you can get a therapist, great. If you can't, get yourself a circle of accountability. And the one thing I would say when doing that, I am a very, very, very big advocate of accountability. Please, when you're in this circle, give them the full story. Don't tell them things that only benefit you. You tell them the full story. Because I myself, I like to tell the full story and be told, Will, you were wrong here. You could have did that better. Because I'm not perfect. And I always aim to be better. I'm not going to be perfect, but I always aim to be better. And that's what I really pride myself on. And I would like to see a lot of people do that for themselves, because how can we become better? How can we grow if we hide away information from the people who are trying to be supportive of us and help us grow, right? So we have to understand that. So when you get this circle of accountability, make sure that they are, getting the full story from you, and you hold on to that. It's choosing yourself. You know, in those times when we let go, we need to really focus on rebuilding our routines, focus on our personal growth, right? Our self care. For me, it took me going an extra day to the gym, right? I already had a self care routine that was built in. I added an extra day. So I would do Sunday, Tuesdays, and Fridays now for a self care day, where I come home, I take a nice hot shower, I get myself together, skincare, and I just relax. Whatever it is that you need to do for yourself in this period of time, that's something that you're gonna really need to rely on. So your personal growth and your skincare is going to be very important through this time. Meditation is a great avenue to travel down, find your new hobbies. I actually just took a pottery class. I went and did a bonsai workshop, a new social circle, right? If you guys have the same circle, maybe it's time to find a new social circle. And that may take time because a lot of people are not as sociable as they once were, but that is something to think about. And something that I've been getting really good at, which is journaling. Anytime that we're going through something, we generally try to figure it all out in our brain. And what I've come to learn, there's two types of people: there's top down people and there's bottom up people, right? And I'm a top down thinker, right? Everything gets stuck in my brain. And that's not truly healthy in a way, because it doesn't allow you to really resolve all the stuff that you have going on. So finding your peace and choosing yourself can really look like those things in one, you know, and you have to understand that peace is a choice. It's not a luxury. It's a choice. Um, but understanding that I chose peace when I stopped defending myself. I realize that a lot of people would rather paint other people to be something that they're not, and you drive yourself crazy trying to, protect your image and do things like that. And it's like, I chose peace and realizing like I'm allowing people to tell whatever story they want. It's like the book that I'm reading. I'm reading Mel Robbins' Let Them Theory book, and it's like, let them, right? Let them tell the story the way that they want to. Let them portray you out to be whatever it is. But the most important part about that theory, as she stated, and what I took from it was, let me continue to be the person that I know that I am, that is looking for growth. Let me be the person that showed empathy. Let me be the person that showed up with intention. Let me continue to be the best friend that I could possibly be, but let them be who they want to be. Let them say what they want to say, right? And that's something that I'm really like understanding, but it allowed me to choose peace at that time, because most times that when we go through something, we're always looking out for defense. And peace generally comes very quietly when you realize that there is really no defense. So I really want a lot of people to think about their relationships in their life. Is it giving you energy or is it taking away from you, right? Like when you think about those relationships, whether it's your parents, it could be your kids, it could be your friends, your spouse, people at work. Like, what are you getting and what are you giving? What's being taken away? That's the biggest thing. You have to understand that. That's a very important thing to understand about peace and choosing yourself. There was a thing that I wrote where you got to choose people who choose you, but most importantly, you need to choose yourself. And it's not selfish to choose yourself. Um, but in this time when you're processing the relationships that you're having, and if you've identified that it is a toxic relationship and it's time to let go, when you're letting go, what you need to focus on is your personal growth, right? Focus on your self care, things like that, like your routine, like how to enhance that to help you get through the time that you're going to go through, because it won't be easy. Anybody that tells you letting go of relationships is easy is not, because The routine would be, I'm used to hanging out with this friend every Friday or whatever, but you have to kind of like go through the motions and you got to deal with it. We There's like 8 different stages that you go through when you're exiting a relationship. And again, we don't just apply it to romantic relationships. We're talking about platonic and friendships as well, right? You bargain, you go through anger, you go through acceptance. There's many other ones that you have to go through, but you eventually get there. But when you're finding peace and choosing yourself, focus on your personal growth. Focus on your self-care, right? I added an extra day to the gym. I added an extra day to my self-care activities that I do. So now it's Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday, right? I realized that I'm not great, but a lot of people probably would enjoy this meditation. Meditation could be a key part to your success in this journey, right? Finding new hobbies. So I actually did a pottery class. I went and did a bonsai workshop, right? Find a new hobby if you got to get a new social circle, find some new friends that you can hang out with that are motivating, that are encouraging, that is separate from what you're normally doing, especially if your circle is connected to the people that you're letting go of. Something that I found very useful that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks, which is journaling. Journaling does a lot, especially for your mental health, because a lot of times us as people, we tend to think about things a lot. One of the things that I spent a lot of time doing was saying, well, I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand, and trying to figure it out, because there are 2 types of people in this world, where you're a top-down thinker or you're a bottom-up thinker, right? It's like your body feels it first, then it hits your brain, or your brain sees it first and then it hits your body. It's like those are the type of people that are in this world, but you have to understand that, right? And we also have to remind ourselves, right? Peace is a choice. It's not a luxury. Peace is a choice, not a luxury. But when I realized that peace was a choice, is that I realized that I would defend myself against things that I knew wasn't right or true, or like try to find ways to kind of keep course correcting relationships. But what I had to realize was, and the book that I'm reading now is really kind of highlighting that, is the Mel Robbins Let Them Theory book, right? And a lot of people get stuck on let them, right? Let them tell whatever story. Let them act how they want to act. Let them, let them, let them, let them. But what stuck out to me is when she spoke about let me, right? And when I'm choosing peace, it's more like, let me continue to be a good friend to the friends that actually appreciate me. Let me continue to move into any relationship with intention of, again, I want to get married again. So let me move in those areas of positivity that is allowing me to continue to be my authentic self. So just because somebody didn't accept who you were in that moment, or anything of that nature, it's okay, right? But let you be you, and if there's things that you need to fix, fix them and continue to be who you are, but let them be them. Um, I want everybody to kind of think about the relationships that they have in their life. And is it giving you energy or is it taking it away? Those are things that we have to understand. But when we spot toxicity, we accept it, we set boundaries, we let go, and we choose peace. Today, I want you to identify one person or behavior that drains you. Take a step towards peace, even if it's a small one. I encourage each and every one of you to understand that walking away is not weak. Doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong enough to protect your happiness, and that's something that you need to understand. But that's all that we have for today's episode of Toxic Relationships and Letting Go. Our next episode actually will come from me joining Here's the Kicker podcast. We're talking about the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, my Niners didn't make it, but hey, it is what it is. It's going to be a great Super Bowl. Definitely enjoy that. But take those necessary steps to identify what a toxic relationship is, what you need to do to walk away from them, and how to be able to navigate through those times. Feel free to drop comments down in that section. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Follow me on all social media platforms. And if you just need a friend to talk to, definitely DM me and we can definitely have a chat. No, I don't charge, but if you just need somebody to listen to you, I'm here for you. And remember to say a prayer for all the people that were lost in the snowstorm, for the people that are in Minneapolis as well, with the tragedies that's going on around the world. I appreciate you guys for spending some time with me today. I am your host, Will. This is the podcast of the Unfiltered Journey podcast. I appreciate you all. I'll see you next week. Peace.